You're listening to the Options Insider Radio Network, the home of the Options Podcast. For more quality options programs, visit theoptionsinsider.com or search for Options Insider Radio Network in your podcast provider of choice. Listeners can also access all of our programming through our mobile app available in the iTunes and Google Play stores. Select programs are also available via live stream at mixlr.com/options-insider. That's mixlr.com/options-insider. Don't forget to follow along with your favorite programs and submit your own questions for the hosts at twitter.com/options, stocktwits.com/options, facebook.com/theoptionsinsider, or via questions at theoptionsinsider.com. And now, it's time for the show that breaks down the options market from unusual activity alerts to market analysis, strategy overviews, listener questions, and much more. If it involves puts and calls, then our all-star panel will break it down. It's time to hit the Option Block with your host, Mark Longo from the Options Insider Media Group and co-hosts Uncle Mike TOSAW from St. Charles Wealth Management, Mark the Greasy Meatball Sebastian from OptionPit.com, Andrew the Rock Lobster GIOVINAZZI from OptionPit.com, and Henry the Flowmaster Schwartz from SIBO. The Option Block is brought to you by SIBO. When it comes to trading volatility, trust SIBO, the creator of the VIX Index, for in-depth and relevant information. SIBO's tools and services gives you up-to-date trade insights, analysis, and positions of VIX options and futures. No matter what kind of trader you are, there's plenty of useful information to take the guesswork out of creating your portfolio strategy and to help you make more educated moves in the market. Visit www.cboe.com/VIX today to learn more. And now, get ready to hit the Option Block.
All right, everybody. That music means we are back once again. It is Monday. It is noon Central. It is 1 p.m. Eastern. It is time to commence our broadcast week here on the old Options Insider Radio Network. Hope you had a great weekend. Hope you rested up. You're raring to go out there for another fun, intriguing, perhaps head-scratching week out there in the markets. I think, don't they pretty much fit all of those descriptors pretty much every week, listeners? That's kind of what we've been living in post-pandemic out here. It seems like we're going to have another fun one on our hands. We'll get to all that fun in a minute. My name, of course, Mark Longo from theoptionsinsider.com, as well as from the ever-scintillating, ever-engaging, at least we think so, Options Insider Radio Network. Reminding you three things. First off, if you like what you hear, do keep rating and reviewing. It does help new people continue to discover the program, no matter where you get the content. B, if you do like what you hear, you should be listening to the full network. If for some reason you're just listening to the Option Block, you're just missing out on a whole heck of a lot of content. And then C, if you want even more on top, the cherry on top, if you will, then head on over to theoptionsinsider.com/pro. That's the place to go to get more access to this and everything else we do here in terms of the pro Q&A sessions. We have a great one. Just had the Viceroy joining us again. I haven't talked to him in pretty much a year. He's always a fascinating one, always a popular pro Q&A session. So if you missed it, you can check it out, theoptionsinsider.com/pro. You can also get lined up for all the other great ones. I believe we have the once and future Dr. Vix, Mr. Rhodes, post-concussion, joining us yet again. So that should be fun. So you want to ask questions to him over there, theoptionsinsider.com/pro. Live stuff like options oddities, all the live streams we do throughout the week. Great giveaways are coming up. A couple more days, listeners. We'll be giving away the March Pro Trading Crate. So you want to get your name in that hat for that. So theoptionsinsider.com/pro. Once you sign up, you are automatically entered. Don't have to do anything else. And then fabulous prizes could be heading your way, just like our next segment, the 80s Wrestling Trivia segment. So let's get to it. All right, everybody. A little bit of ye old Jeopardy theme to kick things off here. We are joined, a little bit of a different show today, listeners, because we are joined by the unclest of Mikes, Mr. Uncle Mike TOSAW, as well as the Rock Lobster, Mr. Andrew GIOVINAZZI from OptionPit.com. Now, you know, if you've been listening to this show for a little bit, 80s wrestling trivia, not exactly the strong suit of the Rock Lobster. So I had to pull a bit of an audible here at the last minute. I had something else planned that was a little bit more in-depth. I don't think that's a realistic question for the Rock Lobster. So now, gentlemen, Mr. Rock Lobster and Mr. Uncle Mike. Actually, we're going to make it even easier for him. The Rock Lobster is going to get to go first. He's going to get the first swing at the bat of our question. And our question is thus. Audible question. A little bit easier. Dialing back the difficulty. Let's go all the way back to WrestleMania 1, Mr. Rock Lobster. The main event of WrestleMania 1 featured a wrestler I know you are familiar with, because everybody is. He is the immortal Hulk Hogan. It was a tag team match against some bad guys to be named in a minute. But Hulk Hogan in that match teamed with someone that is almost too quintessentially 80s. This person could not have existed in any other decade the way he did in the 80s. Some might say he had a bad attitude. This person starred on a very famous 80s TV show, was also in some famous 80s movies, was not known as a wrestler, but he appeared as Hulk Hogan's tag team partner for WrestleMania 1, a way to kind of boost the profile of the event, get it some more crossover appeal with non-wrestling fans. Mr. Rock Lobster, of whom am I speaking? Which legendary bad attitude 80s icon teamed with Hulk Hogan in WrestleMania 1? I can't give you any more clues, sir.
All right. The only thing I can think of is Mr. T.
Yes! Yes!
Very good, Andrew.
Unbelievable.
Wow. You got it. Was it the bad attitude? What gave it to you?
Well, you know why? Because wasn't Mr. T bad attitude on,
yes,
on that TV
he was
show?
B.A. Baracus. Yes.
B.A.
Yes.
Baracus. Oh, my gosh.
Andrew, you have a legitimate point now in our wrestling, not just the one Uncle Mike gave you.
Wow, that might be the most coveted point in history. And TOSAW, I almost feel bad that I just got. They're like, actually, you know what? I was almost gonna say the Macho Man, but I'm like, because that's the only other guy I could think of. And I'm like, but he wasn't in. Was he on TV? I couldn't remember. So
I specifically said he wasn't a wrestler. I know you can guess Hogan, Macho, and maybe Andre the Giant. That's about it. So I got to keep it somewhere in that wheelhouse.
Yes.
Wow, Andrew gets a legit point. All right, Uncle Mike, as a little bit of a consolation, I'll give you a half a point bonus. I'm sure you can get this one. Name the rest of the WrestleMania 1 main event. Who else? Who did they fight against?
The tag team of Rowdy Roddy Piper, Mr. Wonderful Paul Orndorff, and they had Ace Cowboy Bob Orton in their corner.
Ooh, bonus for the manager. I wasn't going for the manager there as well. I knew you could get that one. So yes, you are correct. It was none other than Rowdy Roddy Piper and Mr. Wonderful Paul. We don't talk about Mr. Wonderful enough. A good 80s heel there as well. And of course, Roddy stands in a league of his own as the heels as well. So well done, Mr. Andrew gets a point for Mr. T. Not a bad audible, if I do say so myself. Trying to get something the Rock Lobster can actually get a swing on as we keep on rolling right on into the trading block.
It's time to break down the latest topics, trades, and trends in the world of options. It's time for the trading block.
All right, everyone, welcome to the trading block, the portion of the show we break down what the heck is trading out there. And, it's not easy to come up with a question that Andrew can at least have some chance of getting, given he knows 3 wrestlers from the 80s out there. But Andrew actually stands now, given his point he earned this week, plus his gifted point last week. He actually has 2 points. He's catching up on Sebastian, who has 3.5, and Uncle Mike now has 5.5 out there. So a fun contest out there for Mr. Uncle Mike and the Rock Lobster. Hopefully you folks are having fun. I know you folks loved a little bit of the old 80s wrestling. Let's get to the markets out there today. And again, a bit of a mixed bag. Depends where you're hanging your hat out there, what kind of day you're having today, listeners. If you're hanging out in the S&P, which I know most of you are, you're having a decent day. Not a banger day, but you're not giving up much either. Not quite as good as where we were when we opened the session, but not terrible either. We were hanging out north of 4,000 for a brief moment earlier this morning, the S&P. now a little bit shy of 39.80. So we're still up nearly 8 handles on the day. Actually about 7 now. That puts it up about 0.2% on the day. So not quite as robust as the day was when it started, but we shall see. The day is young. The Dow up about 0.2%, and the NASDAQ off nearly 0.2%. So again, kind of a weird mixed bag out there. That means all of our vol friends are kind of moving, but not a heck of a lot. VIX at about 21.5 when we kicked off the show, puts it up about exactly a point from where it was on Thursday's show. VVIX at about a 97, up 2 points from where it was last week. VXX 49, up 1.5 points. UVXY 530, up about 0.25 point from where it was on Thursday's show. SVIX 1520, down about 0.5 point from where it was last week. UVIX 1920, puts it up about 1.25 points from where it was this time last weq. And our old friend Vol Q, aka the At the Money Vol of the NASDAQ 100, 23.75, up about 0.5 point. All right, Mr. Rock Lobster, you shocked the world. You earned an actual point in our wrestling trivia game. So you get the honor of going first today, sir. What is lighting up your tape out there in the markets?
I have to say that there is definitive proof now that hell hath frozen over just recently.
Yes, we all should be. We should all be selling all equities we own right now and loading up on puts because everything's going to fall out of bed now.
Actually, I'm slightly frightened right now. I'm looking. You know what is? I'm looking at what's going on. I'm like, I guess the easy thing is nobody knows what the heck is going on. That's what the problem is. Okay, we've tried to undo. If you really want to be freaked out, look at some, Treasury Secretary testimony about the size of the budget that they're proposing I don't think they got the inflation memo. I don't think the current government, and for that reason, any government of the last 20 years has gotten the inflation or government spending memo. But this one with the high inflation, you'd think they might pull back that spending a little bit, but not catching it. So you have one branch of the government doing one thing, which is totally disconnected with what the Fed is doing. And then you get another piece, which is a positive piece, that a bank is going to pick up some of the assets of Silicon Valley Bank, which was good. Because I don't know, it's the banking sector falling apart and people losing money is never great. So apparently, whatever plan that they cobbled together seems to be working at some level, as near as I could tell. But the second part is how much the Qs, Mark was right about, like the Qs were the flight to quality. And I thought that flight would continue. Like everybody's just going to keep, just buying this stuff and just jamming in. And maybe they're jamming, and maybe they're jamming out right now. But you look at it and you're like, it's like the banks are doing a little better. VIX is lower, but it isn't as low as it was prior on Wednesday, right before the Fed spoke, whatever they're going to say. And I think the market was probably hoping for, no more rate cuts this year, but that's clearly not what they said. And everybody keeps thinking that rates are going to get cut at some point. And, the Fed has not done that quite yet. So I guess the simple answer is nobody knows what's going on. There's no easy, compelling reason to get just like long equities and go for that, that massive upside bump, because there's not a lot of help coming from the Fed. And I think if there's any message that we're going to get from last week, we're finally trying to get off getting help from the Fed. And maybe at this point, we just want to try to keep the banks from having too much trouble. But none of that is really a recipe for broad market bullishness. And I think that's kind of where we're sitting today. So and I just, when I wrote my article this weekend, I just thought we just kind of have an orbiting market. It's like up, down, but going nowhere. Because I don't see a whole lot changing. Like rates could stay this high for a while because we don't have more bank issues. There's no reason for them to come down until inflation and food costs and all that other stuff starts coming down. But I'm curious to see what you and Mr. TOSAW have to say.
All right, Mr. Uncle Mike, same question to you first. As our half-point winner in our wrestling challenge, what are your enduring memories of that legendary first main event that kind of kicked off the 80s wrestling palooza, even though many say it wasn't until really WrestleMania 3 when Hogan slammed Andre? That really was the slam heard round the world that really, really kicked 80s wrestling into high gear. But that's a debate for another day. What are your thoughts about the WrestleMania 1 main event? And then if you have time, sir, what's catching your eye in the markets?
So with the WrestleMania 1 main event, it was interesting because Rowdy Piper did not like the idea of Mr. T coming into his business, even though Mr. T coming in brought celebrity, and that made Rowdy Piper a lot more money because of the fact that he was there. It made it a better event. I don't know what Rowdy Piper's contract was or anything like that, but he was actually of benefit for the draw to the show. And it was a crazy thing of what they had going on in the 80s, that nothing had ever been done like that before, and that how they brought celebrities in to really promote professional wrestling. And I'd be curious to see, I mean, this is just what I'll ask God about this in heaven someday, I guess, but how would this have been had Andy Kaufman been alive in 85? Would they have brought Andy Kaufman into that? Because Andy Kaufman, he is actually the one that really made David Letterman who he is today. His show, the Andy Kaufman, Jerry Lawler show on David Letterman, was still one of his highest rated shows ever. And that really helped David Letterman's career. So where I'm going with this would be, had Andy Kaufman been around in 1985, what could have been? How would Vince McMahon have used him? Because I'm willing to bet that he would have in some way, shape, or form because of how big his celebrity was and what he actually did for the sport of wrestling. So kind of went a different route of what I was expecting to say when you first asked me about WrestleMania 1. But I really think a lot of credit to the 80s wrestling and how celebrities and the rock and wrestling connection came in. A lot of that's due to Andy Kaufman from what he did with Jerry Lawler. And if you guys are ever want to see some fascinating history, just do a YouTube search of Andy Kaufman, Jerry Lawler, and it's a fascinating story, to say the least, of what those guys did in the early 80s. Now, in terms of the markets today, it just seems like 4,000 appears to be the new 3,900 in the S&P. It seems like that's our new magnet, so to speak. Treasury rates, although we had a pullback in the 10-year note today, they're still fairly high compared to, or higher on the year. We've still had a nice little run up in the values of bonds. And, I'm enjoying just being the bond trading covered call man that I am these days. I've been enjoying the higher premium coming in. Because there's a lot of uncertainty right now, not only in the stock market, but in the bond market. We have steady markets in a lot of other places. Silver does not have a lot of movement on the day-to-day. And then it's interesting that these days in Bizarro world, a lot of times the flight to quality is becoming tech. And, not always, but not today for sure. But in a lot of ways, it actually is. And so I think it's just going to be interesting to see how these markets play out. And we're at a time right now to where the stars are aligned in a way that's different than any other star alignment that I've seen in the last 15, 20 years, being a market participant, market follower, in that we have higher interest rates. And the market's kind of being flat, but we're coming off of a year to where both stocks and bonds went down due to higher interest rate hikes. But now we have uncertainty in interest rates, and combine that with the most Fed-sensitive market, at least that I've ever seen, and it kind of makes you want to wait a little bit. And I think that I'm not the only one that has a hesitancy in this market, because there's always uncertainty, but good gosh, in 2023, seems to be a lot more of it. And that's my take on what's going on.
Wow, even the perma bull that is Uncle Mike wants to wait a little bit. Interesting. Keep that in mind, listeners, when you're diving with both feet into these markets. Interesting point as well about Andy Kaufman. I think just last week, WWE announced they're inducting him into their Hall of Fame this year at WrestleMania. So there you go. You have good timing on that front there. Mr. Uncle Mike. Imagine him in the main event against Hulk Hogan.
He'd find a way.
That would have
Jimmy Hart to help him or something.
That would have been an intriguing, very different main event out there, listeners. Let's see what the main event is in the market out there today. And I think you could safely say it's not VIX. VIX only putting up 194,000 contracts right now, listeners. That's a far cry from its ADV, which is looking pretty robust right now. The highest we've seen it in a long time, 854,000 contracts. So VIX threatening 1 million contracts a day. Unless we see some shakeup later on in the session, doesn't seem like we're on track to hit that today. SPY looking decently robust, all things considered. About 4.75 million contracts on the tape right now. The ADV about 9.75 million. So it's still got a ways to go, but at least it's looking a little bit more respectable. The S, 1.31 million. Now that used to be not that long ago, 6 months ago. We used to say, oh, if the S is at 1 million contracts right now, this time of the show, that's a busy day. We're in for a banger, listeners. This whole 0-day phenomenon has really changed the game, and also our expectations for S volume, 1.31 million. Now we kind of shrug our shoulders and we say, if it's not threatening 2 million, we don't want anything to do with it. The ADV out there also just kind of getting ridiculous. 2.9 million contracts a day in the S. That's a lot of paper, listeners. Is that sustainable? I guess we'll find out. Small cap, 643,000 contracts on the tape right now. The ADV, 1.16 million. Man, it's a hard task for small caps to sustain an ADV around 700, 800,000, let alone north of 1 million where they are right now. So we're looking at some pretty stratospheric ADVs out there right now, listeners. I don't think these are sustainable, but then again, if we keep having some rock'em sock'em robots periods in the market, we could keep these numbers up for a little bit. Doesn't seem like today is going to be the day, though. Q's 1.86 million, the ADV 3.14 million out there. So it's just all these ADVs are just stratospheric. This is insane. So we shall see how the market holds up. Today, like we said, not a day that's going to threaten any of those. Only cost you 200,000 contracts to break into the top 10 today. Listen, another reason why we could spend some quality time talking about 80s wrestling today. Not a heck of a lot else. Lighten up the market out there today. Number 10 gets you to Coinbase. Again, exactly 200,000 contracts. Interesting level. Also very light. We've seen it north of 300,000 many times recently. Today, only 200K. Coinbase, $60.81, off $7 pretty much exactly. So they're coming for Coinbase yet again. You don't need me to break down the litany of concerns facing both the financial side of the space as well as the crypto sides, and you have both of those embodied in Coinbase. On top of that, there are some regulatory concerns floating around their neck of the woods. So a lot of stuff out there. Maybe if you want a bullish sign, Kathy Wood seems to like it. She's gobbling up Coinbase for her ARK fund. So in fact, she sold 27 million worth of Tesla just to buy more Coinbase. So there you go. Rotating out of Tesla into Coinbase. Are you down with that? Again, it's off nearly $7 today. On the year, the high is, brace yourself for this one, listeners. The high is 206.79. That was pretty much exactly a year ago. I'm sure if you go back even farther, it was even more painful. Yeah, the actual all-time high looks like it was around about 343. That was back in November of 2021. So obviously $60 a long way from that high. Also, obviously, crypto a long way from its high, even though looking a lot more robust out there these last couple of weeks than it has earlier in the year. Number 9, the chip zone coming early today, listeners. Number 9 is our old friend AMD, 218,000 contracts. AMD giving up nearly $2 today, about $1.80, trading a little bit north of 96, about 96.20. The low out there, obviously 54.5. So we got a long way to go out there. You know the saga of AMD. I won't belabor the point. Number 8. Good old softy. Will they, won't they, with this whole Activision deal? Good for 249,000 contracts today. It seemed like they maybe had some clarity on the European side of that deal, but still not enough to keep softy from going the way of the rest of the big NASDAQ names. Selling off today, off about 4 1/3 or about 1.5%, trading right around 276.25 right now. 52-week high for this name, right around 316. That came pretty much exactly a year ago. The low 213. So they're obviously ways from their low out there as well. That low came back in November of last year. So Softy, you know the deal with them. Very much antitrust, also an AI play out there. So a lot of different competing factors at work. Speaking of AI plays, right behind it, we have the other big AI contender out there. This is the old Googles hanging out number 7, exactly 250,000 contracts today, selling off about $3, trading right around 102.5 right now. Number 6, keeping things in the contagion fear side of the space. We've got good old First Republic, ticker symbol FRC. Ever since all this noise broke the last couple of weeks, we started to see this name popping up on our radar again today. Number 6, 275,000 contracts, actually up $1.20 today. $13.50 is where it's trading, up about 10%. Are you taking flyers on this stock at this point, listeners? Are you slinging this one? You have any faith in this, or is this just the ultimate dead cat bounce before this goes the way of your Credit Suisses and everything else out there? Your Silicon Valleys, I suppose we shall find out. But again, good today for 275,000. Let's look really quickly. Let's just see what are folks slinging out there in FRC today. Listeners, looks like the big dog today. This is kind of what I expected. 22,500 of the March expiring this week, so end of month March contracts. The 1 puts, listeners, that's what's leading the dance out there. So for all this rally out there, it's still 22,000 of the 1 puts. That's followed by 15,000 of the 5 puts, also expiring this week. And then 8,600 of the 9 puts. Got to go all the way down to number 4 to find some calls. 8,500 of the March 20 calls. That's interesting. That possibly be the collar or a risk reversal. Who's buying or trading those 20s straight up right now? That just seems like an intriguing trade. It does line up with the 9 puts, though. Let's see really quickly what's going on with they're overriding these, so that could be a bit of a weekly collar. The 920, they're getting 50 cents for these, so I guess you can't blame them. While the getting's good, 50 cents for the March 20s going out the end of this week. It's a pretty hefty premium, all things considered. All right, number 5. Yes, I said number 5, listeners. It's the Amazonians. 314,000 contracts. Amazon off about 70 cents. Trading right around 97.40 right now. Not a heck of a lot to parse there. 314,000 contracts. Again, we're all the way up halfway through our top 10 and only at 314,000 contracts. Again, kind of shows you what a bit of a sleeper day it is today. Number 4, also hanging out in the financials. It's Bank of America, 331,000 contracts on the tape. This one rallying a bit today, trading right around 28.30, up about $1.20 on the day, or about 4.3%. The 52-week low for this one is 26.32, set not too long ago, listeners. I think it was on Friday. So this one hanging out near the lows. I suppose if you like this name, you're not afraid of a little bit of contagion, you don't mind riding that Bronco, then I guess this could be an intriguing one for you. It hit a high of about $48 over the last 5 years. That was back in January of 2022. So obviously about $20 below that level. The low it hit in the big nadir, the big sell-off back in March of 2020 was 1967. So still got a bit of a ways to go on the dark side if you're looking at that level out there. But intriguing stuff nonetheless. Bank of America. Are you folks taking flyers in these crazy names? Are you washing your hands of these contagion names? I'm curious. Maybe that might be a good question of the week out here this week. Interesting as we mull it over here. Number 3, Chip Zone, coming a little bit late for the second half. Started at number 9, second half coming at number 3. It's our old friend NVIDIA. Also a bit of a player in that AI game as well. 398,000 contracts on the tape for NVIDIA. 265.80 is where it's trading right now, off exactly $2 or about 0.75%. The 52-week low, 108. 52-week high, 289 and about a half. My goodness. So NVIDIA almost all the way back up to its 52-week high, which was exactly a year ago. So this chart looks like a giant V on the year, listeners. Wow. Just crushed it until October of last year, and then look out above ever since. Number 2, yes, I said number 2, listeners. It is the fruit company. Where this stock is hanging out will tell us how the market feels. And, Apple is red. The market is sad, listeners. 158.40 where it's hanging out right now, off $1.80. a little over 1, about 1.1%. It's about 60 odd cents north of its of its day low out there today, 157, close to 90 out there. So intriguing stuff. Not a heck of a lot of movement out there for Apple, but again, it's kind of a bit of a sleepy day. You know what, though? It's not stopping Tesla from hitting 1 million contracts, 1.01 million to be precise out there. Tesla actually bucking the trend, up 1.13. So I guess the news that Kathy Wood dumped it is rallying the stock. Either way, it's trading 191 and about a third right now. Again, it's a long way from its 52-week high of 384 and a quarter, but also a pretty impressive distance from 52-week low it's set not too long ago of 101.81. Remember just a couple of months ago, everyone's writing the headlines, Tesla is done. Oh my God, wash your hands of it. And they've added 90 handles from that level. Looking out to the earnings front, not a ton of paper out there this week. We got Lululemon tomorrow, Micron, and Dave & Buster's tomorrow. That seems to be really the banger day of the week. The rest of the week, not a ton. We've got, unless you're looking forward to paychecks before the open on Wednesday, or perhaps skills with a Z after the bell on Thursday. Then we got you covered out there. But outside of that, not a ton of names you folks watch and follow on a regular basis. We are coming down to the tail end of it. McCormick Spices on Tuesday before the bell. So there you go, listeners. Get a little bit of spice ball. If you want a nice in-depth look at the entire season and what's to come for next season, Matt from Oratz, the keeper of all the earnings data, will be joining me on the advisor's option tomorrow. We'll get a deep dive into all that fun there. Speaking of which, though, it's time for us to keep on rolling and get a deep dive into some weirdness. It is time for the Odd Block.
It's time to break down the most interesting, unusual, and downright questionable options activity that's been identified by theoptionsinsider.com. It's time for the Odd Block.
All right, everybody, let's get wild. Let's get crazy. Speaking of wild and crazy, I was just talking about this name in our most actives. This is Microsoft, or I really should say the other side of this trade now, which is Activision Blizzard. You know, ever since the takeover was announced, it hasn't done a ton, as you would expect, but moved maybe a little bit more than you would normally see in these post-M&A deals because, of course, the sword of the Justice Department kind of hanging over this one for a while. And then, of course, like I mentioned, there was some beneficial news on that front over the last few days. So we have seen the stock rally from about 78.60 to where it is right now, 84.5 right now, popping again today, up about a little bit today. But a nice move out there for Microsoft, or I should say Activision Blizzard. These two are one and the same now. I guess I'm already assuming the deal is done in my head. Of course, ticker symbol ATVI. This name, and I used to talk about it a long time ago on the network, listeners. It was one of the more reliable premium rights in the business. This was back probably in the early days of the option block, about a decade ago. This thing used to bounce between 10 and 14, 10 and 15 with some pretty decent regularity. You could write a lot of premium on this thing and do pretty well. And I did for quite a while. Then it finally started breaking out of that range, got north into the 20s. Then it changed its dynamic, became a bit of a different beast. Wasn't quite as an attractive name, at least from a premium harvesting perspective. But for a long time, this was a go-to name. And right now, if you're trading a lot of M&A, I guess it's a go-to one for you again today. There was a lot of, looks like, closing options paper out there in Activision today for size. We're not going to talk about that, listeners. Instead, we're going to try to find the nuggets, the little pearls of wisdom that are hanging out there amidst all the tsunami of M&A related paper, including this one, Mr. Rock Lobster. We've got the 84 puts. I said we're hanging out at 84.5 right now, listeners. It's the 84 puts. Looks like somebody gobbled up 3,000 of those this morning, paying 48 cents. So not exactly getting those for cheap. And these are expiring this week. So these are the weekly 84 puts going up for 48 cents. That's about a 20 vol. The stock was pretty much exactly here when these went up 84.5. So no big move in the underlying. Mr. Rocklops, looks like they're betting on a little bit of a retracement here this week after Activision, your beloved name, one half of your new favorite Microsoft, having a nice ride over the last few sessions. So looks like they're betting it ain't going to last forever.
Yeah, that's. I mean, from the pricing, it looks like the deal is done tomorrow, doesn't it? I mean,
it looks like it already happened while we were talking. The deal is done.
I mean, well, the 84 puts are 48 cents, and that's about a 12 vol or something.
About a 20, yeah.
So it's not super expensive. I guess the biggest thing is, what's the Activision price on the takeout? Like, what are they pricing it at? I don't know what that number is. So I find it's again interesting. Maybe they're buying some stock with it. I don't know because I guess this thing is this deal has been going on for a year and a half or something. I mean, I know they take a while, but
I don't know if it's quite that long, but it has been a while. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's not. Let's see, why buy those puts? There is a little bit of breakup fever, but I guess, another thing too is the deal just spiked from 80 to 84, so maybe somebody's just trying to lock something in for this week. But I guess the Europeans must have given them some room for the deal, so. Because stock is up $4 in the last couple of days. Yeah. I mean, it appears to be it's pretty much near a all-time high. So I think somebody's just buying. To me, that looks like just a cheap shot that there's going to be some sort of adverse news or market sell-off or something just to make those things go lower. But just at the pricing, it just looks like there's kind of a floor under the stock at 84. So it's basically the deal getting broken up, and that's why they're buying those. Just like total shot in the dark if it happens.
Now, you were right. It was January 18th of 2022, so it has been over a year. I was thinking it was like 8-10 months, but no, over a year since it has been dragging on for quite a while. It seems like we've been living with it forever. Initially, it was $95 a share, so obviously things have changed over the past year and 3 months. Long time to be sitting on a deal like this, Mr. Rock.
Yeah, I mean, it's not nothing there. And I guess because Microsoft from the beginning of 2022 was 300 plus. So I guess it's on its way back there again. But I think when this deal went down, and it was stock and cash, right? So, because January 2022, Microsoft was 325. So there's a little. You're not getting all the goodies you were going to get before.
But now they have AI, so it's like a double bonus.
Yeah.
Each one of those shares comes with Chat GPT, which is just extra juicy.
Yes, you get extra goodies.
You know how I know
AI goodie with.
You know how Microsoft thinks they're onto something hot there, because who's ever wanted to use Bing, right? But now you have to sign up for Bing to get access to this Chat GPT, and now all of a sudden they're saying you got to get into the beta. But then if you want to speed up your approval process, all you have to do is make Bing your default search engine and your default browser and everything else. And people are actually doing this, something that would have been unheard of a few years ago. Who makes Bing their default search engine just to get access to Chat GPT? So they know they're onto something. And they're trying to, as Microsoft does, always bundling, levering the strength of Chat GPT to try to make Bing the dominant force of the web that they've always wanted it to be. I find that hilarious. So, yeah, intriguing stuff. Obviously, folks are thinking this deal is looking a lot more bueno than it was a little while ago. I guess we'll keep an eye on that as we keep on rolling into our next name. This is a newcomer to the odd block. This is OLPX Holdings, Inc., ticker symbol OLPX, trading just ticked $4 exactly right now. On the year, let's see, a year ago, it was trading $16.08. And it hung out there for a while. They rallied it up to about 18.25 in July. That was pretty much all she wrote for them. They sold off back to about $9 in October. Then they fell off a cliff in October from $9 down to $4 in the span of one overnight session. So obviously some bad earnings, bad trial results, whatever it is, something really smacked this name in October. And they've been hanging out around this $4 to $6 range pretty much ever since. 52-week low was $3.68. Looks like they kissed that recently out there last couple of weeks. So a little bit above the 52-week low, but also a long way from the 52-week high of 18.25, listeners. And what do we find out there today, listeners? A bunch of weirdness out there, but it looks like at the end of the day, Mr. Rock Lobster, this is one of those old school call paloozas. Folks just really loving themselves some call premium out here in OLPX. It started with us noticing about 3,000 of the April 4 calls going up for 35 cents. Paper gobbling those bad boys right on the offer. That's a 96 vol, listeners. So they're not playing around. The stock was pretty much right here. They came in, did 1,750 more, also for 35 cents. They liked it so much they did about a 7,000 total of these on the day. Then they didn't stop there. They started trading other calls. The April 5s went up 3,300 times, and 1,100 of the May 4s going up today as well. So just a call premium palooza out here in your new favorite, Mr. Rock Lobster, OLPX Holdings. What say you, sir?
Well, I woke up this morning with an OLPX complex.
You always have an OLPX complex every morning.
Is the Viceroy getting all uppity now that they're trading the crap out of some 4-level calls?
I don't think he would look too kindly on these, but this is not the worst one we've seen by far.
That's true. Although we can't laugh anymore about the 2.5 puts that tripled in value.
No, we all learned a valuable lesson. That was like an episode of, the more you know, kind of after school special. You buy the 2.5 puts in a crappy financial name.
Listeners that don't get options oddities or go to the option pit, the OI premium area, the musings go far and wide in some of those specials. Yeah, this one is, I've never heard of the stock whatsoever. And it does appear that they just, they're just going for it. I mean, it's a 10.35 market, 10 cent bid at 35. And maybe they think this is now the time that the OLPX will rise from the ashes. But it's pretty much just looks like a straight call buy. And yes. Oh, you know what? How can you not buy calls in something that is a science-enabled, technology-driven beauty company?
I was just looking at the same thing myself, where science and technology meets beauty and passion, sir. Everyone, at the end of the day, everyone has the right to beautiful hair, sir. Everyone.
You know what? I guess you know what? I want to almost say that this is, like a hair replacement company or something, and I know nothing about it. Because they when they start putting what an amino acid is in their description, it works on a molecular level to repair hair. It wouldn't surprise me if this is Santa Barbara, California is like, it's like Vidal Sassoon or something, holding company for one of these, or that guy John Paul Mitchell Products or whatever, because I know that guy is super rich for selling shampoo. So none of that would surprise, because it is housed in Santa Barbara, California, where I guess that would be the mecca of beautiful hair would probably be in Santa Barbara, California, I would guess. But a very inexpensive stock. This could have kind of buyout written all over it, to be quite honest. I mean, company makes money, has decent revenue. It just looks like it doesn't look like it's a huge growth company. But it certainly kind of makes money. I don't know this. I guess I would just look at this as a bargain basement call purchase, and not, if you were an investor or whatever, not terrible by any stretch of the imagination. You need it to happen relatively fast. There's even the 5s are even trading 3,500 of the 5. So that's 10,000 contracts in a stock that trades nothing. I think you should mark this one, because this could be what do you think?
We have marked this one. It is one we will keep an eye on. Yes, you're right. We don't usually see these kind of call tsunamis come out of nowhere too often like this, and they're just getting all the premium they can get, listeners. They're getting the 4s, they're getting the 5s, they're getting everything. April 4s, even a little bit of the June 5s, a couple hundred of those trading. So, yeah, this is not a name that does a heck of a lot of paper. Let's see. What is the ATVI out there in good old OLPX, which has the right to beautiful hair? 518 contracts, listeners. They've done already 12,000 today. So, yeah, something is afoot out here, listener. We'll keep an eye on this one. You like these? You're going to piggyback on these April 4s, listeners? Gobble them up for 35 cents? I don't think they're trading 35 cents anymore. I'll have to go look and see where they're trading right now. But intriguing stuff nonetheless. You like the 5s better? You're going to do the 4, 5, 6 fly? What are you up to? I'm curious. Hit us up. Let us know out there. Speaking of letting us know, let's let you know about some trades we've been tracking out here lately, listeners. You know, it's been a hot time out here on the old options oddities front, or the odd block front, I should say. And we've been tracking a lot of names. A lot of them just popped off over the last couple of weeks with March expiration. Let's go pay off a few of these. This one. Yes. I love this one. This one, after we talked about it on the show, I went and looked it up. Because I thought, is this what I think it is? It turns out it is exactly what I thought it was. And so I actually showed it to my son, who's in 8th grade, and they were just happened to be studying potential energy at that moment. I said, check out this name. That's the entirety of what this company does. This is back to Energy Vault Holdings, listeners, ticker symbol NRGV. This was the Swiss gravity and kinetic energy-based storage company. So we talk a lot about battery energy storage. What about kinetic and potential energy storage? That's what this is. They use the power from renewables to lift counterweights and then store them at that height. And then once the power is done, they slowly release the weights, and that returns the energy back into the system. It sounds fascinating. I don't know anything about how efficient it is, how much they lose in that process, or anything along those lines. I'm guessing from the prices of the stock that something's wrong with this, whether it's too expensive to scale, whether it's not efficient, or maybe they're laden with debt. I don't know what it is, but it's a fascinating idea on its surface. And what we talked about back on March 2nd, listeners, was the NRGV 3.5 calls. Paper bought 1,000 of those. The stock was trading 306 at the time. They bought 1,000 of the 3.5 calls. They paid 30 cents. This was a 183 volatility. They were not playing. They were swinging for the fences. They said, here we go. Potential energy for the win, listeners. There were earnings on the 7th, and alas, no joy, listeners. The stock closed at $2.21. These 3.5 calls were still open. So obviously, do your quick math, listeners. That's 30 grand that they dropped there on this swing for the fences. If they had bought the stock, they'd be looking even worse right now. The stock's down to $1.90, so it has fallen quite a bit from the 306 level. I haven't looked much further into the fundamentals of this name, why it is so beaten up. But on the surface, Mr. Rock Lobster, it's a deeply fascinating name that looks like from a stock perspective might be a little bit flawed, sir. What say you? Someone swinging for the fences, getting a little bit caught up in the fury over potential energy storage, and no bueno, sir.
Yeah. I keep wanting to think of, like Leonardo da Vinci making a perpetual motion machine or something.
Go look at this company's website. It's not that far from that. It's crazy.
Yeah, like, and then the solar power moves the batteries up, or the solar power makes the batteries rise when there's lots of sun, and then they just all sit there like big weights, and then they go down. It's kind of like riding the tide. Because Maine actually had tidal electricity generating machines at the turn of the century, the turn of the 19th, 20th century. I didn't know if you knew that or not, but you would think that we would do a better job of harnessing gravity because the Earth just kind of spins around for free every day. But maybe I could buy that. Okay, we got some machine, and then the Earth spins around, and somehow the magnets moved. That goes against the force of gravity, or whatever that could be. It sounds great. Somebody's buying some calls, and I guess, if the Green New Deal, which we're still waiting for the benefits of said Green New Deal, comes to pass, maybe this will be a win for that. Yeah, because I actually went to that website too. I saw the giant building with all the weights and stuff.
Yeah, it's awesome. It's really cool.
Well, the funny thing is, how much money does it cost to build?
Clearly too much. That's obviously the answer.
It's anyway, and I applaud people's creativity. I just, I'm still trying to find I guess some of the solar companies now are starting to make money. Like First Solar is profitable, that Canadian solar company that makes solar stuff. So, but it's a thing in progress. But I think this one, they're just buying some calls in the $3.50 stock and looking for the big win.
It's like a kid's science project run amok, but it's
yes. Do you remember that TV show in like early 2000, like Alias?
Yeah, yeah.
I feel like this is a Rambaldi machine.
Oh, that's right. They had those crazy Rube Goldberg machines.
Yes.
There. They've raised hundreds of millions in venture and from SoftBank and from the Saudi Aramco fund. So they've raised a ton of money. I'm guessing they've blown it all on somewhere. So intriguing stuff as we keep rolling, listeners.
Weights.
Yeah, on counterweights. And those counterweights are expensive. You got to raise them up. It costs a lot of money. Right. As we keep on rolling right on into the strategy block.
It's time to dispense options, wit, wisdom, and education. It's time for the Strategy Block.
All right, Mr. Uncle Mike, tell us, sir, how excited are you about counterweight technology? And then B, what else is lighting up your tape in the Strategy Block today, sir?
Well, not much into counterweight technology, but it is an interesting topic, just listening to you and Andrew talk about it. But what I want to talk about is counterweighting in volatility strategies. And so I want to go over horizontal versus vertical spreads today in the strategy block. Now, a vertical spread, of course, is when you're just buying or selling a call spread or a put spread. You buy the 50 call, you sell the 55 call against it in the same month. You're bullish on it. Now, that would be something to where if you were bullish, you would do that spread. And let's say that you were also bullish and the stock's at 50, let's say. You could also buy the front month 55, the 6 month 55 call and sell the front month 55 call. And that would also be a bullish trade. Now, with that, the benefit of a vertical spread is that if the market goes higher, then you'll go higher with it. But it might cost a little bit more than what a horizontal spread would cost. Now, with a horizontal spread, if you're making it bullish, and of course you can do any of these spreads, bullish, bearish, or neutral. I'm just trying to keep it simple to respect the brevity of time with which we have. A horizontal spread, you can set that up as well, and it won't cost as much. So why would you do a vertical versus a horizontal? Well, I'll tell you why. If you believe that implied volatility is high and going to stay high, then you're probably better off doing a vertical. Now, what I mean by high, and let me rephrase that, if you believe it's high and could go lower, then you're probably better off doing a vertical. Now, the reason for that is that volatility is closer to being neutral on doing a vertical spread. Horizontal spreads work a little bit different. Let's say that you believe implied volatility is high and it's going to go lower. If you do a horizontal spread, that can be a disadvantage for several reasons. Reason number one, yes, it would cost less, but you might not get the same implied volatility or the same premium in month 2 that you got for month 1. And on top of that, if volatility goes lower, you might not have as much cushion for the cost of the spread itself. So with that, I know we're coming up against it here, but I want to be brief and to the point. If you believe that implied volatility is higher, then you should probably look, and you're directional, you probably should look to do a vertical spread. If you believe that implied volatility is low and possibly going to get higher, then you may well look into doing some type of a directional horizontal spread. And that is my brief strategy block for today. I believe this is the last one in March.
I do.
Oh, no, it's not. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Oh, no. Okay.
Yeah, it is.
It's not our last show, but it is my last strategy.
Last strategy block, yes. Unless you're doing one on Thursday, I was going to say, in which case you might have another one. But other than that, it's time to keep on going and roll around the block.
It's time to tell you what we'll be watching on our trading screens until the next episode. It's time for Around the Block.
All right, I'm getting sucked down the rabbit hole of potential energy again, listeners. Let me pull myself back here to go around the block. Mr. Rock Lobster, sir, what are you keeping an eye on outside of potential energy for the rest of the week? Oh, no, he's muted himself. Mr. Rock Lobster, are you there? I see you guys muted. All right, Mr. Uncle Mike, sir, what are you keeping an eye on for the rest of the week?
4,000 in the S&P, any news that comes out via the Fed, and trying to be careful at this point. Yes, I am very bullish, but I'm also very cautious.
Man's bullish, but also cautious. Unfortunately, that music means we are running out of time, at least for the old OB. Let's try once more, listener. Let's just dive into the fray one more time. Let's see if he can hear us, even though he is showing that he is muted. Mr. Rock Lobster, A, can you hear me? B, if so, where should folks go? Check out what you got cooking, sir. Are you there?
I am, sir.
There he is. There he is.
I was mentally challenged trying to fill an order. All right. optionpit.com. Call or see me at Money Map Press. Either place. But if you go to Option Pit, you get 10% off. If you heard me on this here show, ask Andrew or Ted, our customer care team, and they will set you up.
There you go. They will set you up to learn all about Andrew's upcoming potential energy newsletter. I can't wait for this. Should be a good read out there. Check it out. OptionPit.com. And Mr. Uncle Mike, if folks want to hit you up to debate, going vertical, going horizontal, where should they go? What should they do, sir?
Follow me on Twitter at Mike Tosaw, TOSAW.
There he is, at Mike Tosaw, all one word on the old Twitter machines. That's going to do it for us here on the old OB. But never you fear, listeners. You want a little more in your lives, stay tuned. I'll be back in a little bit to break down everything going on in the world of crypto with the folks from Kadena joining us in the hot seat out there. So that should be a fun one. Then back again tomorrow, still firming up the time for a pro Q&A with the once and future Dr. Vix. You know, he is post-concussion after all, so trying to make sure it works out for him. As well as, of course, back again after that with our friend, the Oracle of New Hampshire, to break down everything going on in the world of advisors and options. Then back again on Wednesday, got a special treat, a double palooza of options boot camp, going to be joined not just by Dan, but also by Mr. Overby over there joining us here for a little bit of educational fun on Wednesday before we're back again on Thursday, another episode of the Option Block. Stay safe out there, everybody.
The Option Block is brought to you by SIBO. When it comes to trading volatility, trust SIBO, the creator of the VIX Index, for in-depth and relevant information. SIBO's tools and services gives you up-to-date trade insights, analysis, and positions of VIX options and futures. No matter what kind of trader you are, there's plenty of useful information to take the guesswork out of creating your portfolio strategy and to help you make more educated moves in the market. Visit www.cboe.com/VIX today to learn more. You're listening to the Options Insider Radio Network, the home of the Options Podcast. For more quality options programs, visit theoptionsinsider.com or search for Options Insider Radio Network in your podcast provider of choice. Listeners can also access all of our programming through our mobile app available in the iTunes and Google Play stores. Select programs are also available via live stream at mixlr.com/options-insider. That's mixlr.com/options-insider. Don't forget to follow along with your favorite programs and submit your own questions for the hosts at twitter.com/options, stocktwits.com/options, facebook.com/theoptionsinsider, or via questions at theoptionsinsider.com.